Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to tackle one of the most maddening experiences in sales, why a deal that looks like a sure thing suddenly just goes dark.
I mean, seriously, have you ever had this happen? You've got what feels like the perfect deal. The rapport's there, you've shown the value, it's a slam dunk. And then, poof, they just vanish. Complete radio silence. And your first thought is always, who did I lose to? Which competitor swooped in?
Well, here's the thing. What if the real culprit isn't your competitor at all? What if, in most of these ghosting situations, the problem isn't another company, it's something internal, something happening on their side?
So, okay, if it's not the company down the street, who is the real competition? See, it's not about who you're selling against, but what you're selling against. The real battle is for something totally different.
You're not just competing against another solution. You're fighting for mindshare against a dozen other things on their to-do list. You're up against the massive gravitational pull of just doing nothing, the status quo. You're navigating all the internal conflicts of their buying group. And most importantly, you're fighting these silent, unseen roadblocks that they will almost never tell you about. And this is where it gets really interesting because we have to understand the real battleground. We're all trained to handle objections, right? But these are roadblocks. And trust me, they are a totally different animal. Getting this difference is absolutely critical. Okay, look at this. An objection, that's the stuff they actually say to you. Your price is too high. It's external, it's out in the open, and it's usually about your product. But a roadblock, that's internal. It's silent. It's that little voice in their head saying, man, what if this whole thing fails? What if it's my fault? They're never going to say that to you. See the difference? It's not about the product, it's about the change. So let's define this thing. A buyer roadblock is basically this unseen web of internal conflicts, self-interest, and straight-up fear that just paralyzes them. It makes them indecisive. It's the silent deal killer that pops up right when you're at the finish line and grinds everything to a halt. Okay, so how do we fight an enemy we can't see? Well, the good news is these roadblocks aren't just random. They fall into patterns. In fact, research points to 4 major ones. Let's get into our diagnostic guide so you can learn to spot them.
Roadblock number 1, preference for stability. This might be the most powerful, invisible force in any business. It's inertia. It's that deep, primal comfort of just keeping things the way they've always been. Change is scary. It's work. It's uncertain. And our default setting as humans? Yeah, it's to avoid it. And if you ever hear this, we're just going to stick with our current solution for now. Let's stay in touch. Ding, ding, ding. That's the alarm bell. You didn't lose to a competitor. You lost to the status quo. To them, the pain of making a change just felt way bigger than the pain they're in right now. So how do you beat it? You have to shift your role. You're not a seller anymore. You're a change agent. Your mission is to introduce what we call unconsidered needs, the risks they're taking by standing still that they haven't even thought about. Once you shine a light on those, you can work with them to co-create a vision for the future that they actually get excited about and feel like they own. All right, roadblock number 2 is anticipated regret, and this one is deeply personal. This is all about the fear of making the wrong call and getting blamed for it. We're not just talking about the company failing. We're talking about their personal reputation, their career being on the line. So when you hear something like, we're going to put this project on hold, we need to rethink what we actually need, that's not a logical pause. That is pure emotion. That is the sound of someone slamming on the brakes because they are terrified of the fallout from a bad decision. It's like they're getting buyer's remorse before they've even bought a thing. So what do? Your job is to de-risk the decision emotionally for them. First, you have to find and support a champion inside the company. Then, you use that classic feel, felt, found method. I get how you feel. A lot of my other clients have felt that same way. But here's what they found when they move forward. And finally, you show them how others have succeeded. You make them the hero of their own story. Okay, next up, roadblock number 3, the perceived cost of change. And listen, this one sounds like it's just about the price tag, but it's so much more than that. It's the total cost in terms of effort, time, disruption, training. It's the whole shebang. It's all the pain involved in actually making the change happen. And this is the classic line you'll hear. Our current supplier offered us a similar deal, so we're going to stay with them. What they're really saying isn't that the deals are the same. They're saying the extra value you're offering just doesn't seem worth the massive headache of switching from what they know.
The only way to beat this is to completely reframe the conversation. You have to switch from talking about cost to talking about perceived value. Your job is to create tension. Show them the huge gap between where they are now and that future vision you built. And then you leverage loss aversion. Show them what they're actively losing every day they don't change. You have to make the pain of staying put feel way worse than the pain of moving forward.
And our final roadblock, selection difficulty. Let's be real. A typical B2B deal today has, 6 to 10 people involved? Every single one of them has done their own research, has their own opinions, their own priorities. And getting them all to agree on one thing? It can feel absolutely impossible. It's chaos. So you get the classic stall tactic. We're still weighing our options. Can you call me next month? That is the textbook definition of analysis paralysis. The whole group is just overwhelmed. They're drowning in information, they're stuck in the mud, and pushing the decision down the road is just easier. Your role here is to be the signal in all that noise. You have to get to what's called the advantage position. That means you stop talking about every single feature and focus on the 2 or 3 things that truly, genuinely set you apart for them. Be radically transparent. Tell them what you're great at and maybe even what you're not a fit for. This builds massive trust and simplifies everything, letting them finally make that emotional connection and move forward. So, we've got all these roadblocks. How do we tie this all together into a strategy? Well, it turns out there's a really powerful little formula that explains exactly why change either happens or doesn't. And here it is. Think of it like an equation. D times V times F has to be greater than R. D is dissatisfaction with how things are now. V is a clear vision of a better future. And F is the clear first steps to get there. R is resistance, all that cost and sacrifice we talked about. Now here's the kicker. If D, V, or F is 0, what happens? The whole left side of the equation becomes 0, and resistance will win every single time. So when you really start to see the world through this lens, through these roadblocks and this formula, your job description completely changes. You stop being someone who just sells a product. You become something much more important. And that brings us to the final big question you have to ask yourself. Are you just selling a product, or are you guiding a critical change? Because here's the real takeaway. Your customer isn't struggling to buy your thing, they're struggling to change. So if you can shift your mindset from seller to, a change Sherpa, someone who guides them up the mountain, helps them navigate the complexity and conquer those internal fears, well then you're not just closing a deal, you're becoming an absolutely indispensable partner. And that is how you win.